Welcome back to the Filmistines, the double feature podcast. Join us as we unravel the interwoven experience of the continuous conversation of cinema. Take part in pairing movies with their curse counterparts, movies that share DNA, or even pairing questionable duos by joining our Patreon at patreon.com/Filmistines. We offer tiers at the $1, $5, and $20 level, where the $5 tier will grant the ability to request films to further the discussion. So grab some popcorn, sit back, and get ready to join the 100-year conversation. This is the Filmistines, where movies are more than just entertainment, they're an experience. All around you. And welcome back to another episode of the Filmistines. Thank you guys for joining us today. Today I'm joined by my troubled friend, Lucy.
There must be another Lucy here. Hello, everyone.
Remember, you can join us every Monday, Friday, and every other Wednesday for brand new episodes of the Filmistines. Some recent episodes include Next Goal Wins, Karate Kid, Your Name, Akira, and the new Inside Out 2. We're going to shift up our schedule moving forward to try to feed into our Patreon a little bit more. So instead of Monday, Wednesday, Friday public episodes, we will have Monday, Friday public episodes, and every other Wednesday will be a bigger Patreon exclusive episode moving forward. Remember to leave nice comments, thoughts, and ideas on our Patreon as well. Come subscribe for $1, $2. Come request a movie. Rate us on Apple Podcasts. We appreciate all the support. Thank you guys very much.
Are you stressed and filled with anxiety like I am? Maybe in a bit of pain from that car accident you had a few years ago? Well, the sponsor of today's episode, Hempville CBD, has us covered. They have the highest quality products created by chemists and doctors. Hempville carries everything from CBD to THC dispensary grade without those despicable dispensary prices. Order your Delta 8, 9 edibles and vapes along with the THCA flower and get free shipping when you spend $50 or more at HempvilleCBD.com. Check out the link in the description for more details.
But today we'll be talking about Greta Gerwig's 2017 film, my favorite GG film, Lady Bird. I'll just start off by saying that this is very easily my favorite Greta Gerwig film. I love just about everything about it. The writing, the characters, the dynamics, the plot beats, the music drops, the obviously inspiration, at least to me. And sort of curiously, I've liked this movie more and more as I've watched it over the last few years. It's probably my fourth or fifth time. I think there's a really interesting approach to a very familiar dynamic here with the Lady Bird and her mom, Marion. And it's one of my favorite relationships caught on camera, for sure. But I shared this movie with you recently. I'm very curious how you feel about Lady Bird. You're not a huge fan of Greta Gerwig's work, but you can't deny she's on to something. She's got a weird flavor about her movies.
Yeah, I can't deny that, and I don't think you're a big fan of her work either, just Lady Bird.
Yeah, I like Little Women. I like parts of it a lot. Florence Pugh's character, Timothée Chalamet's character, very fun. Totally rejected in the film. Barbie was okay.
Yeah. So no, not a big fan, but the movie was good. It was better than okay. High school movies are always interesting because you can have such a big range of high school movies, these coming-of-age movies, because you can have movies like Superbad, and then Mean Girls, and then The Breakfast Club, and then maybe like Napoleon Dynamite or something. All very four different movies.
There is no setting that has so much variety. I was thinking the same thing. You can have this weird, surrealistic, natural, mumblecore thing. It can just be anywhere.
So I think there's a high school movie for everyone.
Oh, yeah.
And the thing I love about that genre is that one day everyone will come of age. Everyone will have that experience that will make them grow as a person. Whether it happens after high school or before high school, it's up to the individual, but we all go through it, which I think is why these movies tend to be so loved, because they can be so relatable. You can find one. But with that being said, this movie made me think, were people's high school experiences really like this? Like Lady Bird here? That desire for independence that she had was a bit too strong for me. It was too intense. I found it a little bit exhausting. Maybe because I had the independence I had as a child, that I never once wanted independence. I always had it. My parents weren't overbearing. So it wasn't as relatable as I would have wanted it to be. And these conflicts with her family and all these relationships, again, I found them a little bit exhausting. I'm not sure if it's in a good way or a bad way yet. Because Lady Bird is a strong character. And I liked it. But she lacked a little bit of, she lacked a lot of bit of compassion. And she was a little bit too self-centered. Which, who isn't as a teenager, especially your senior year of high school? It's all about you right then, that year. And everyone tends to play it up. But I don't know. She was a little bit too dramatic, and she lived in her own world that I had a hard time gaining sympathy for her. But the movie has very strong characters. Not only Lady Bird, but even the smaller roles like the dad. They're all so complex. And these supporting characters just add so much richness to this movie. I was a bit surprised about that because especially roles like dads, we tend to just make them dads and make them go lay on the couch and go to sleep and make it a bit almost on the mom saying, "Are you listening to this?" and him just basically ignoring the mom. We gave a lot of depth into the dad, and I was pleasantly surprised by it. The movie had a lot of heart, and it was original, right? It was mildly based off of Gigi's life.
Yeah, I don't know if that's been said, but it's very obvious to me that this is a very personal movie. Yeah.
I think I saw somewhere, I can't tell you where now because I pulled up so many things, but that it was semi-autobiographical. I think it was in an interview. She did an interview and someone said that and she didn't deny it, but I'm not sure. But I can see that. I can see that originality, which was nice.
I like the thought of at the end where Lady Bird is reading those letters that her mom was trying to write to her was the first time that Gigi's mom was seeing the same thing happen that she did to Gigi.
Like it was a bit too personal not to have come from somewhere.
Yeah.
And I do like that about her. And that's a great point you brought up in the beginning, how there's something undeniable in her work that she tends to bring. She's got something to say about life, but she's got something to say about her own life.
And she's got a really fun way of saying it.
Yeah, she does. She's very heartfelt. And the dialogue here and in some of her other movies are definitely 10 out of 10. There's some great lines. I will say what kept this movie from being fantastic for me was that I was a bit bored at times. The movie just felt too long, and it really shouldn't have because it was only, an hour 30? But I don't know. I guess it focused on the dialogue too much, or maybe on the emotion of these complex characters too much, that I'm more of a plot-driven action kind of person. Like these slice of life films, I just can't get as into them as I would love to.
Well, I have to tell you that this is not a slice of life film. This is
a slice of her senior year.
Yeah, it might literally be, the final months or final few weeks of her senior year, but these are moments with almost a no fat in between to only describe the immature nature of many of these characters. It's almost surrealistic in its dialogue in that way too. And I'm really surprised to hear some of that from you because this reminded me of two of your favorite movies. And a third one that I love a lot. I'm not sure that you love. You want to guess?
No, go ahead.
Gilbert Grape, hands down, reminded me 100% Napoleon Dynamite and The Squid and the Whale.
I would definitely have to think about what's Eating Gilbert Grape because Gilbert has issues in his own life that want him to have that independence that he's never had before because he's had to be the man of the house because his dad killed himself, his mom's obese, and he has a mentally challenged younger brother he has to take care of all his life. Not to mention Endora is boring as fuck. That fast food place is like the talk of the town. Lady Bird is just a dramatic teenage girl. She's got nothing to want to be independent from, which we kind of get that at the end. She comes to realize what home means to her and what she should have appreciated.
Lady Bird reminded me of Gilbert Grape in its structure of storytelling, especially in these moments of dialogue, conversation happening, and there would be a cut, there would be a music drop, and it would complete the idea that was previously been stated by maybe a completely different character, or it would be the embrace of the certain emotion, whatever that was. The characters themselves would not embrace the emotion, especially with one another, but the song captured it. And yes, that's kind of just what the point of music is in movies anyways, but there's a big exclamation mark on it, I think, here because of the reuse of the songs. So less in Gilbert Grape's character and more in the flavor of just the filmmaking itself.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know if I've quite paid enough attention to that to compare these two like that. Because even in tone, they're not even remotely close.
Yeah, not beyond the somberness, I think that kind of overrides both those films.
I don't think this is somber.
Oh, I think this is a deeply depressing movie.
I think there's depressing undertones, but I don't think it's as depressing as Gilbert Grape.
In the bigger picture, I totally agree, but looking through Lady Bird's eyes and the level of romance she just has and thinks what life is all about, I feel that weight with her. And then when you're like, oh yeah, you're just a regular ass teenager going through regular ass teenage problems in Sacramento, Gilbert Grape's life is much more depressing, no doubt.
Yeah, and I also think that Lady Bird is a little bit oblivious.
Yeah, it's part of the point, right?
To the problems of life that she's just not grasping. That's why I don't think I can sympathize with her, because she's not compassionate at all.
Yeah, there's a level of immaturity, especially emotional immaturity, that Gilbert Grape had to figure out, 10 years old,
Right.
when he was raising kids.
Right.
But I did just want to make a big point of what Lady Bird is in essence. Lady Bird is a depiction of the unspoken compounded tension between people who are unable to rectify a sense of empathy or even acknowledge the underlying conflict, an ever-common confrontation we all share along the human experience. This idea lives on the back of the weight of growing up in an ultra-modern system, so Lady Bird's view on the world is no doubt warped by her immediate surroundings and only reinforced by her mother's own emotional immaturity. And I think that point is made several times throughout the film, but even sets the stage in the very beginning when Lady Bird and Marion experience their emotions independent of one another while sitting right next to each other during a car ride, as seen in the opening scene after the two finish an audiobook. The two cry, but not together. Throughout the film, the two are often at odds with one another, but lack the emotional maturity to confront the tension, and often evade the undercurrent of tension by simultaneously consenting to their actions, like listening to music or looking at a dress, and both manage to avoid the natural shared emotional experience that they have cooking the entire movie. They don't embrace each other. They don't talk to each other because they don't know how to.
Yeah, that's probably the best interaction in the movie. And one of the best interactions I've seen between two people. I can definitely agree with you there. It's so dramatic. We can tell that these two characters are both so dramatic and immature. And it's funny you say that they lack this communication because of how close they are physically. I don't know about you, but I don't go and lay in bed with my parents. The last time I can remember doing that was when I was in diapers. And I also don't cry in front of my parents. That's the last thing I'm going to do. The last time I cried in front of my parents was when my dad was in the hospital and we didn't know if he was going to come out of his coma. Those situations, those are when it's okay to cry in front of your parents. But here, they're so vulnerable with each other, but yet they can't communicate with each other. It's pretty intense. Not to mention, in this particular scene, we don't have any music, which I could see this kind of scene having some kind of music to elevate that tension that's going on there. But we don't get that until she hops out of the car, and then we have that drop of the introduction song, and then we have the Lady Bird name. So it's pretty awesome.
And then Lady Bird immediately jumps out of the car, showing us a literal representation of that feeling of wanting to get out of a situation by all means necessary. Because we've all known people who we just can't get along with on some level because of so many underlying problems. Like someone not taking their shoes off when you're normally supposed to take your shoes off, or leaving dishes out. Like these little things shouldn't make you lose your mind, but they do because of these other things that have kind of compounded that tension, right? And that is in essence the entire movie of Lady Bird, is this inability to communicate with Lady Bird and Miriam. And I really like what you said about their dad being this surprisingly deep character and just having a lot of texture and mannerisms and just realism. I have this little note here saying, everyone acts as the main character of their own story. This is explicitly expressed by Lady Bird's momentary interest in drama class, right? Also this kind of calling out to wanting to express something, right? She doesn't know how to communicate that to the world.
Yeah, so she changes her name.
Yeah. This offers up this idea of a character-writer relationship, meta acknowledgement of Lady Bird's desire to be a main character. She changes her name. She wants great things in the world. She basically wants to be a princess on some level of modernity. But obviously, ultimately, by the end of the film, rejects the very idea of adolescent romance by finally appreciating the attention and appreciating the attention to detail, which I love. That's probably my favorite part of the movie, when her nun principal lady, whatever they are at a Catholic school, throws the love of Sacramento in Lady Bird's face, and Lady Bird's like, what the fuck? Not, I want to get out of here. What are you talking about? So these moments, to me, are sort of saying we are and are all not simultaneously the main character. This is touched on by the acceptance of her true name, Christine, at the end of the film, right? And I'll be stating the obvious here. Your name, your parents, where you're from, where you go to school, your friends, what your interests are all part of you. And that fact must not only be accepted but embraced, because they are some of the tools of better understanding yourself, and more importantly, maybe even better communicating yourself to others, which to me is the major message of the film. And so that point alone sells this punchy dialogue, this completely not normal way of speaking to one another. There's just punch after punch as far as dialogue. Everything's so dramatic that it starts to fit this like Shakespearean bill of being too clever for its own good kind of thing. I think Napoleon Dynamite has a lot of this energy. I think Napoleon Dynamite's a little stupider, intentionally so, but it shares a similar kind of surrealistic flavor of writing. And then slap in these weird Gilbert Grape people finishing each other's points of thought from scene to scene. You just get a really strange representation of the high school coming of age story.
And I think this standout here is definitely the mother and daughter relationship, with them having such strong personalities. Like the daughter and the dad don't clash because they're very different people. Their personalities, at least. And I think that's something a lot of girls can relate to, because a lot of times the mom and the son don't have those clashing personalities like the daughters and moms tend to have. And I think Gigi did a great job with making this so heartfelt, but at the same time making it humorous. Some of these interactions between Lady Bird and her mom had me cracking. Like when they were out shopping and the mom said, like, oh, are you tired? Do you need me to take you home? She's like, why? She's like, oh, because you're dragging your feet. It's like, no, like, why didn't you just say what's wrong? Or I don't know, whatever that interaction was. And I mean, just like these passive aggressive comments, they're so funny, but they're good.
Yeah, I thought this film was deeply funny, but it was kind of like, oh, that's funny because it's true.
That's funny because, yeah, because I've been there, you know? And I really like that she expanded on this relationship without making it weird or creepy like I could see in other films. I can't think of one at the top of my head. But I also like how she made the characters kind of similar. Lady Bird and Marion don't look alike, but they have similar characteristics with their haircuts or maybe being around the same height or whatever. But I like that visually she tried to make it look like this could be not just her daughter, but this could be her when she was younger.
They were sort of mirroring each other, physically at least.
Yeah.
Physically especially, I should say. What do you think of the end when Marion dropped off Lady Bird and her dad at the airport and she was going to drive around and she really couldn't take it anymore because who can? You're going to snap at some point. And when Marion refused to go inside the airport, you know, she was like, parking's too expensive. I'm just going to drive around. She breaks down. She tries to pull back up, runs in, misses Lady Bird. She's already past the gate, getting on the plane, whatever. Talk about a potential core memory moment for both of them. We don't see that effect so much on either of them, but this could have very well been a chapter-ending moment in their relationship, preventing a real future between the two.
Yeah, that's true. That could have been such a pivotal point, and it was up to Gigi to decide where she wanted to take that. But also part of me feels like Marion has always done something like this in all parts of Lady Bird's life. And this is just part of being an adult, having adultier consequences. You know, it's not the same thing not showing up to your middle school play than not showing up to drop you off at the airport while you're going away to a new city. But in essence, it's kind of still the same thing. It's the same feeling that Lady Bird's gonna feel not seeing her mom there. But it also could have been such a pivotal point if Lady Bird hadn't left. And that would have been a core memory in a way of, wow, my mom finally decided to come back. She decided to put her anger aside finally and do something about it.
Yeah, I bet that rung true with a lot of people because we've all experienced these moments in time where we think we really fucked up. And you won't know until some time has passed.
Yeah. Yeah, especially as parents, having, not that I'm a parent, but when your kids date that person or marry that person that you don't want them to, and you're going to do some really hurtful shit.
Yeah, exactly. Speaking of dating, how did you feel about Danny's arc?
That was hilarious. All her dating life was some of the funnier bits of the movie too. I mean, she caught her boyfriend making out with another guy, and that
hilarious.
That scene was so funny because the guy, not Danny, but the guy he was kissing when Lady Bird opened that door, he covered his mouth with his shirt, almost like if you walked in on someone having sex, like they would cover their private parts. This man covered his lips, like, oh my god, like he had just committed the biggest, most atrocious sin of his life. And it was so funny.
It was so awesome.
And then right after that, they have this like super dramatic crying to music scene, and it's Lady Bird and her friend Julie. And it's so funny. Oh my god, it killed me. And what killed me about his arc the most was when it stopped being funny, when it just got real too fast. And I was laughing about the whole situation until he started breaking down and crying, and then it kind of hit you, and now you become human and you sympathize with him at least. Like, oh shit, you're a Catholic boy.
Yes.
You're fucked.
That was one of my favorite moments of the whole movie, because it does take this really hilarious thing to, you know, actually have happen to you, you know, catching someone cheating and stuff. That's just hilarious. Doesn't matter if it's with the same sex or whatever, but of course it can make you mad for whatever reason, but
there's a reason. It's not for whatever reason.
Well, when you're little like that, you know, it's whatever. It's
not. It all counts.
It's all horseshoes and hand grenades.
No.
This movie is injected with, oh, that just got real fast.
Yeah, that's true.
A lot. It's so... That's what I mean by kind of punchy, is There's this sardonicness masquerading these actually deeply saddened people. Especially the drama teacher. We get such little screen time with him.
The priest?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I love him so much. I think about that little emotional circle that he does with the drama class, where he says something like, the first one who can cry wins.
Yeah.
As just a drama exercise. And 5 seconds in, he starts crying, and then, he apologizes or whatever. And shortly after, you find out something sad happened. I can't remember exactly what it was, but there's just this kind of retroactive air of, oh, it hurts.
Yeah, that's also one of those big moments, like, oh shit, it got real too fast, because you can even see it in the kids' faces. Like, everyone's kind of having fun, trying to make themselves cry, who can be the winner, and then you see him cry, and you're like, oh, he won, haha. And then he continues to cry, and then there's just, his face is overcome with this depressing aura, and they're all like, oh shit, like, what happened?
And we see an interesting echo in my mind with Lady Bird's dad when we find out he's on depression medication. Just the way he talks, his mannerisms, his gentleness. His gentleness also kind of reminds me of Gilbert Grape's mom. But we have this moment where he gets laid off, and later he is at this interview, and it doesn't go so well because he's an old guy in a young person's game. And then 5 seconds later, his son shows up. And this movie isn't really about a generation kind of displacing another, but there is just this melancholic air of just, man, that is happening under the same roof. So sad. But because the dad is, the most likable character in the movie, and probably the best character, really, let's be honest. He tightens up his tie, wishes him luck, can't wait for you to get the job. Why is that so sad? I don't know.
Because even when you're down on your luck, you do whatever you can for your kids. And there's something so sweet about that. And something I can't see the mom doing.
What do you think of Timothée Chalamet's character, Kyle? He was a little hard to understand. I'll have to say, Timothy was sort of hard to understand when he was just younger. I don't know what's up with that. I feel like you get a little bit of that in Call Me By Your Name, the first Dune. There's just this mumbliness to him that I think is being massaged out of him. Maybe it's just with age, but...
Well, it's also these type of characters he plays.
Sure, yeah, but I mean, come on, man. You can
Cause I didn't
enunciate.
Because I understood him more in Little Woman.
Okay, yeah.
Than this film, and it was just a 2-year difference. I don't know when he did Call Me By Your Name, 2016?
Yeah, I think it was 2017.
Yeah, I'm not sure how I felt about Kyle here, because at first I thought Gigi was trying to say something about maybe men in this situation with Kyle, and maybe even that guy at the end that she hooks up with in New York, or she's about to hook up with. Because I think he makes a snide remark at Lady Bird's music and says, oh, wow, you have really bad taste in music. They're all the greatest hits. It's like, what? No. And then I think she defends that somehow. But Timothée Chalamet's character, Kyle, is very bizarre. And he's just this very aloof, too cool for school guy. But we just said that Greta Gerwig's best character in this film is the dad. So she's not saying anything about men. That completely took that out of my mind.
Sure, and her brother is...
Right, and she just does a really good job at developing all her characters, even Kyle. But I like that he's the one who, breaks her heart, and...
He breaks her worldview.
Yeah.
In a way.
Yeah. But I liked him.
I have a little note, my last note, I promise, about Kyle. Kyle, the walking contradiction, is a mirror of Lady Bird. He houses similar privileges, but instead of desires of projecting a voice into the zeitgeist and dreams of self-fortune, Kyle's granted a place in the world where he can afford to reject modernity and its innate fortune. His views are without self, and with a loss of self and romance, Kyle forces Lady Bird to look closely into their mirror, only for Lady Bird to find a form without meaning in Kyle, and in turn seeing her reflection, meaning without form.
Yeah, it's almost like they could learn a little bit from each other to kind of neutralize their extremities.
Yeah, exactly. But there's no world where you could see either of these guys taken away from each other.
Yeah. Yeah. But I do like her comeback when she says different things can be sad. It's not all war.
Yeah, well said, exactly.
Yeah.
I didn't quite place that.
So she's trying to teach him something too. Like, hey, this is sad for me right now. But yeah, I like that.
They're sort of an inversion of one another.
Yeah.
His proper introduction is something that rings with me throughout the days. He doesn't believe in money, but he goes to this very fancy, tuition-driven private school, Catholic school, which of course is not by his doing, it's by his daddy's doing, but it's basically a luxury to even be able to think that way.
Yeah. And I was surprised by his character. Timothée Chalamet tends to play more likable characters. That boy that you are going to have the crush on in the movie or the series or whatever. But here, you don't like him unless you're into that, I guess. But you're not supposed to.
Yeah.
And it's funny when the dad tells her,
yeah,
like, you're not seriously gonna go with this guy that just honks for you.
That's beautiful.
Beautiful.
That's awesome.
Such a dad thing to say.
And you almost think he might go outside and like poke his head out or just stand out there and look at him or something, but he doesn't because he's so gentle and I don't know, so academic kind of feeling.
Yeah. And also very laissez-faire on his kid's upbringing. You will learn for yourself one day. I also like the friend as well. We said earlier about these situations where things are funny until it kind of hits you. And there's something there with Julie. She's, the chubby friend who admires Lady Bird. You can see in her face when Lady Bird speaks, like, okay, I'm holding on to every word you say.
Which makes sense because she's very passionate.
Yeah. And even mimics her, like when Lady Bird put her name in quotation marks, Julie also put hers in quotation marks. And Lady Bird just has this attitude of, why are you doing that? It's not the same thing. Like, mine's obviously unique and different. Yours is not. She's like, I don't know. I think they're the same thing.
Hilarious.
It's so funny. And then she completely ditches her. And you're like, damn, you just did that to your friend. But I'm glad they have this come back to each other moment when Lady Bird realizes, like, oh, okay, I need to think about others. And this is also a thing I really enjoyed about this film, that our main character grows. She obviously does some self-reflection and she learns from it towards the end of the film and when she goes to New York. And I like that she, her embracing her name, embracing her roots. It's perfectly packaged in a bow.
But was it enough? Should we have had a moment or two longer to kind of settle in with what Lady Bird has evolved into? Or is it a stroke of genius to let the audience be positive enough to know that there's going to be upward growth?
I definitely do not think we should have had more. I was already thinking the New York stuff was a little bit too much. Like her going to the hospital and getting drunk and all those things. And I see the necessity for that to show her growth and for her to have her come to Jesus moment, almost literally. But definitely the second option, let the audience have that optimism that she grew as a person. And nothing like being removed from your environment to make you grow as a person. You either sink or swim in those types of situations. And I have a feeling Lady Bird did not sink. And she stayed in New York.
And she made that movie. She made Barbie.
And she's now worth millions of dollars.
I like what you say, come to Jesus, because she's going to a Catholic church. She has these kind of dips into Jesus-y things.
Yeah, because when she wakes up from the hospital and she comes out, she's like, "Sir, what day is it?" And he's like, "Oh, it's Sunday," and she runs to a church.
Literal come to Jesus moment. Yeah, totally. That's awesome. It's a little cheesy, but
hey, this movie's cheesy to a degree.
It's like cheesy in a really sad way.
Yeah.
So having a little bit of, that's what I'm saying. That's a little surrealistic kind of levity, right? Do you feel that? It's like too meaningful.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I see the surrealism, especially with how much sun and natural lighting we have in this movie. This warmth that does not typically happen when you have that surrealistic moment, or even that surrealistic feeling, even if it's not explicitly surreal. So I don't know. But I do think you're onto something with at least the dialogue being surreal in a way that no one really talks to each other like that.
What do you think of the social suicide when she spoke out during the anti-abortion assembly?
That was hilarious. I wonder if that's a moment in Gigi's life that she spoke up about something and kind of got in trouble for it. Maybe not suspended, maybe not quite in the situation, but a moment where she decided to say something different and it worked out for her. But I thought that whole entire scene was hilarious. I didn't have a lot to say about the score or the soundtrack of this movie. Honestly, I didn't pay too much attention to it, especially with so much dialogue that I had to pay attention to. The score wasn't a huge standout, but I did notice there was a song when Lady Bird and her dad were in the car, and it was Hand in My Pocket by Alanis Morissette, that 90s, early 2000 girl. And I just thought it was interesting having one of her songs be in this film. But it kind of fits because if you do listen to her songs, they're very angsty, kind of like Lady Bird is, but they're not that negative. They're almost positive. And that's a weird spin, an angsty positive vibe. I don't know. I liked them. But I didn't know if the inclusion was for a reason, if Gigi is a fan, or if it's just to give us a setting of when this movie is supposed to take place.
Yeah, I think for some people, there's no one like Alanis Morissette and Smash Mouth. I don't know. People, these specific bands that really throw you back at a specific point in time. And she's definitely one of them. So
yeah,
Gigi probably loves her on some level. So very intentional. That may have been a song her and her dad listened to in the car.
Oh, yeah. I also want to bring up these two contrasting scenes that I really liked how they were shot. The first one is when Lady Bird and Julie are walking by the big houses in the fancy neighborhood. And we have these really wide shots of the houses and the girls' appreciation of it. And then when she's in New York by herself, we have these really close-up shots of Lady Bird walking by herself of these New York houses. And they're all so small. But they're not small because we can't even see the top of them. I mean, they're New York houses. They're tall. But she's like not even paying attention to them. And just this very brief way to show us like where her headspace is at. And I loved them. I love these two contrasting scenes. I like all these mentions of houses, and I'm not sure if there's a metaphor in there somewhere, but my favorite part of this movie is that Lady Bird and the mom have a favorite Sunday activity they like to do. That's a very straight pull from my own life, because one of me and my mom's favorite things to do was yard sales on Saturday mornings. We would go to a gas station, grab donuts, grab coffee, go yard selling all day. And I like that a lot, that this mom and daughter have an activity they like doing together. And it was going to see open houses at the big fancy neighborhoods that she admired so much. And I don't know, I loved it. I loved all these house references.
Yeah, like the notes that Lady Bird finds in her messenger bag at the end of the film. I think that's something very personal to Greta Gerwig. That kind of stuff just screams personal film to me.
Yeah, I can definitely see that.
It's a great observation for you to notice the wide and close shots, beginning and end. When she's in New York, she's a small fish. She's not in her element. But in Sacramento, she is the main character, right? In her little world. Because she's grown up there. Everyone's the main character. I've already established that, right? In her own little stories. But she can be center stage. Just as her stomping ground.
Yeah.
And she can again in New York. She just has to figure out what that means.
And like I mentioned early on in the episode, in every great high school movie, there's this moment everyone finds so relatable. Maybe you had a fake ID in high school and you find McLovin relatable, you know? And here I had two like super relatable parts. They weren't even funny. And it was the best friend having a crush on her high school teacher. Like, who didn't have a crush on one of their high school teachers? That was so funny. That was hilarious. And like, she was the only one that would like answer his questions and laugh at his stupid jokes. Oh my god, it was hilarious.
Yeah, there was a funny little, again, kind of surrealistic thing happening there where that teacher, I don't remember his name, would look at him like he was in this romance novel. Like there was just like this otherworldly thing where this was Julie in the teacher's world and everyone else was just kind of fixtures there. And we were seeing the exaggerated dream of what Julie wanted to see on that teacher. Because there was this hint of flirtatiousness in him in those scenes. Small hint. Small. I like that she's also making good grades and, you know, Lady Bird's not.
And the second most relatable thing was just Lady Bird wearing her heart on her sleeve. And oh my god, that was just hilarious when she wrote Danny's name on her wall. And then the next guy she was on to, she scratched off Danny's name and put in Kyle's name. Oh my god, that was so funny. That's like, which girl didn't do that with her notebooks or whatever? It was hilarious.
All right, man. Well, thank you for watching Lady Bird with me and talking about it here today.
You're welcome.
Do you have a budget guess?
Yeah, I'm going with 20 million.
That's fair. She co-directed a film before this. She was an actor in a bunch of films before this. Greta Gerwig, that is. So she can maybe leverage some money, right?
Yeah.
Well, it says here that it was 10 million.
Ooh.
So a little off.
This was 10 million, but Little Women was 45.
They had to build those big houses.
2-year difference. Excuse me, it was 40, but that's really close to 45. Not bad, not bad.
It went on to make 79 million.
Oh, wow.
So made lots of money.
It won several Academy Awards, or at least got nominated, right?
Yeah, it was nominated for Best Picture, Best Director, and Best Original Screenplay for Gerwig, and the Best Actress and Supporting Role.
That was Sheldon's mom in Big Bang Theory, by the way. I don't know if you saw that. I don't know if you watched Big Bang with me. I know you saw bits and pieces, but Sheldon's mom is played by Lady Bird's mom, by Laurie Metcalf. And also, Lady Bird's brother, Miguel, played by Jordan Rodriguez. I thought I knew him from somewhere. He looks super familiar. And he's from this show I used to watch called Dance Academy. And it's been a while since I watched that show, so I was very surprised, but he just has this unique face. And Jordan Rodriguez is Australian.
Oh, yeah, Dance Academy is an Australian show.
I thought so. They were in Sydney, and they all sounded like Australians. And
like
they
Steve Irwin.
Yeah, and they were, and they had kangaroos.
They were fighting off giant spiders and shit.
It was a good show.
Well, over on Letterboxd with 2.64 million people, that might be the most number of people so far on Letterboxd.
Wow.
They weighed in at 3.9.
Yeah, I'm giving it a 3. Definitely couldn't go lower than that. This is a very well-made movie. Very good ideas. A lot of heart went into this. It might require a rewatch. It might require some more thought if it ever bumped up to a 3.5 for me.
Yeah, like I said at the very beginning of the episode, I have found more and more of what I like in this film over the years, after maybe 5 times watching it. But I've landed around at 3.5.
3.5, not bad. 3.9, I'm not mad at.
Yeah, Lady Bird's 3.9 makes way more sense than Barbie's 3.9.
I don't know.
Well, man, thank you again for talking about this movie here today, and thank you guys for listening to this episode of The Filmistines. I hope you guys enjoyed that. Remember, we post every Monday and Friday and every other Wednesday with brand new episodes of The Filmistines on patreon.com/Filmistines, Spotify, Pandora, Apple Podcasts, YouTube. Remember to leave nice comments, thoughts, and ideas on our Patreon as well. Come subscribe for $1. Come request a movie. We appreciate all the support. Thank you guys very much. But until next time, take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
And that's a wrap for today's episode of The Filmistines. Thanks for tuning in and joining us on our cinematic journey. We hope you enjoyed the discussion and gained some new insights and perspectives on the world of movies. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform, especially Patreon at patreon.com/Filmistines, and follow us on social media for more film-related content. We love hearing from listeners, so if you have feedback, suggestions, movie recommendations, or book recommendations, please feel free to reach out to us. Until next time, keep watching and keep loving the magic of movies. This is The Filmistines, signing off.